Hey there, happy Saturday, happy 19th of January, and welcome to day 19 of this 28-day inspiration series. I'm Amy Pat T. Colvin. Thanks for joining me this morning, and I hope you are all having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea that ties back to acceptance. And what I want to discuss specifically is how we sometimes have this urge to achieve more or be an overachiever or be, at the height of standards. And I know that really well in my life. I definitely was an overachiever as a kid. And going back to yesterday's conversation about being a people pleaser, that was one of the ways that I kind of lived life as a people pleaser, as I always wanted to have that standard, one extra set higher. But what I realized in my own life and what I see in other people is when you set really high bars and you never get a chance to achieve them, you never end up feeling like you have that sense of accomplishment. So for me, it was always sort of this, I was never feeling good enough about what I was doing because I was always extending that bar out one step further, one step further. Or even if I'd met a bar, it was like, oh, well, that standard was too easy. Gosh, I should set another bar. And instead, over the course of my life and over the course of practicing meditation, I've begun to realize that it's imperative to let go of what we perceive as those societal norms so that we can shift into this place of believing that I am enough at any given moment. Now, saying to yourself, I am enough, doesn't mean rolling over, giving up, and being mediocre. What it means is that in this moment, I am enough, and I will continue to strive and do better. So even if I didn't get all the things done on my task list yesterday, I'm still content with what I did get done yesterday and know that today I will continue to move on. I will strive a little further. There's times when we have to push ourselves pretty hard, but in that process of pushing, do your best not to beat yourself up. So for example, when I climbed Kilimanjaro last year, without a doubt, it was hard work. And every single step when you're at high altitude and it's dark and it's cold and it's really super windy, you have to have some sort of thing set in front of you. But I had it set up so that it was really achievable. For me, the next thing was make the next step. Make the next step. I knew there was this goal of summiting, but in that moment, it was make the next step. And I don't know if I shared with you in the past, but I ended up with bronchitis on the day that I was summiting. So my lungs were just on fire. And there were moments where I had to stop. And, and I didn't have the voice. If I tried to yell, I would just start coughing. So I tapped the person in front of me and said, hey, can you yell up to our guide that I have to stop? So recognizing that I had this goal, I wanted to reach the summit of Kilimanjaro, but in the midst of that momentary day to day to day, or hour to hour, minute to minute, I would take one step and take the next. But when I had to stop, I was willing to say, I have to stop. Also on that same day when we were getting ready to leave camp, I'm a big, strong woman, right? I always have been. But this ability to recognize my limitations allowed me to step up to the guide and say, look, I'm sick, my lungs hurt, I know I can get to the top, but I'm going to need some help. So one of those things of knowing that you are enough also ties with knowing when you have to ask for help. So I said, look, I need some help. He said, no problem. We can have someone carry your pack for you. Start out with it. I'll keep an eye on you. If you get to the point where you know you can't carry your day pack, let me know. Or if I feel like you're struggling, I'll come let you know. So we walked for maybe an hour. And at our first break, he came up to me and he said, okay, give me your pack. So I didn't feel any sense of not being good enough. I knew I was enough. I just needed some help. And I think it's important for us to keep that in perspective, that one, we don't have to do it all by ourselves all the time. Two, that there's value in setting a bar such that we can achieve it, so that at any given moment, we feel good about ourselves instead of continuing to think, man, I didn't do that well enough. Man, I could have done it a little harder. I could have tried a little harder. I mean, could I have made it up with my pack on? Maybe. But I was happy to know that I didn't have to. Another example of this is when I was working at Google. In the first part of my career there, I kept seeing process changes that I wanted to implement, that I thought, these are some ways that we can make this program better. This is what we can do to make it better. And I felt like if I wasn't continuously trying to make this program better, that I wasn't doing my job. Well, my job was to be a massage therapist, and I was really darn good at that. They didn't hire me to be a process implement change person. They hired me to be a massage therapist. And when I finally realized that it was okay to be really good at what they hired me to do, instead of constantly trying to make things better, it took a lot of the pressure off of me, and it modified how I related to my superiors, and everybody was more at peace. So there's these times where, and that's not to say that the ideas for process change weren't good, and ultimately they were implemented, but not in my timeline. And I think that's one of the things that we, as people, if you are inclined to be an overachiever, it's like, okay, I have this great idea. I want you to do it now. And sometimes others aren't ready to implement those changes. And so we have to slow ourselves down, going back to patience, right? Going back to that ability to just breathe into whatever the situation is. It goes back to tolerance, being tolerant of the fact that process changes weren't happening as quickly as I wanted them to, being tolerant of the idea that on Summit Day, on Kilimanjaro, I had bronchitis, but knowing that in the midst of that, you can accept those situations. You can shift into a place of understanding around those situations. So my invitation for you today is to consider if there's any areas in your life where you are inclined to consistently want to do more, be better than, and places in your life where you might not be cutting yourself some slack. And when you think about those places, consider it through this lens of patience, tolerance, acceptance, and understanding. Consider it through this lens of I am enough. And I will strive to grow and become even better. And as you do that, see if it creates an opportunity in you to be more content, to be more settled, to be more able to be in this current moment. Quite often in the meditations, the guided meditations that I do, I follow a series of phrases, and they're phrased in the affirmative. I am safe. I am at ease. I am kind to myself and accept myself as I am. I'm filled with peace and joy. And for some people, being able to say those in the affirmative isn't possible. And so make it aspirational. May I be safe. May I be at ease. May I be kind to myself and accept myself as I am. May I find peace and joy. So my thought, my wish, my aspiration for you today as you move forward is to think about that into the course of the day. Are you content with where you are, how you are right now? How will you grow and become even better? And can you say for yourself, I am enough? If you're not there yet, that's totally fine, but keep working with this until you get there. So happy Saturday. Have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you next week or tomorrow on Sunday. Bye-bye.